Why is it that so many horror stories, even going back to fairy tales, have monsters living in and around and underneath bridges? What is it about bridges that makes them so scary? Maybe it's because they're like well-used pathways with a hidden side underneath. Bridges are suicide hotspots. Trolls and axe-wielding dirty dick goatmen live underneath them. And bridges are really creepy at night. This is the story of one bridge in Wales in the UK and the incredibly disturbing things the adventurers discovered when they went inside the bridge. This is a true story with photographs and everything. Unfortunately, the author who originally wrote the story deleted their profile, so there's no name attached. So let's just call the author, Mike, your best friend. The tale takes place in North Wales, a beautiful place as the author attests, but certainly lacking things to do. I've been to North Wales and I can completely agree. There is a certain highway running along the coast from Wales into England. Also, train tracks run alongside this road for most of its course, occasionally passing overhead via a small cement bridge. One of the group had observed a manhole cover nearby, which they believed to be the entrance. On closer inspection, they discovered that several tools would be required in order to gain entry. They returned with the necessary equipment and proceeded to unbolt the cover. This had to be done stealthily as the train track was right beside, not close enough to be of any danger, but definitely a sufficiently small distance to cause panic for any train driver. And panic means cops. It wasn't long before they had removed the heavy steel disc and had started descending the ladder down into the structure. Once they had all safely reached the bottom, they decided to progress to the other side, crawling through the bridge. At this point, they were totally confined into the narrow space that leads into the main area. So, as they squeeze and crouch and at one point scrape along their bellies to get to the other side of the structure, there is a growing sense of claustrophobia. The distance from one end to the other is surprisingly long. But by the halfway point, you can look down through narrow gaps onto the highway below. But in the tunnel itself, you could barely see your hand in front of your face. Pitch black. From this point, we'll go through the pictures and I will read out the captions of the pictures. I'd forgotten that the passageways don't actually run all the way through the structure. It is sealed off at the midway point. So the slight dip above the supporting pillar is where the sinisterness took place. It makes me wonder, is there anything untoward on the other side? If you look closely, my friend's left hand can be seen gripping a rung, the rest of him disappearing into the darkness. This is the small area before you enter the passageways. Even in daylight, it was virtually pitch black. Very creepy. I had to use flash to capture this one. None of us realized that there was even graffiti on the walls until looking at this photo. And here is the start of one of the 3 passageways leading to the middle of the bridge. Creepy as hell. When you are staring down this passageway, it is virtually complete darkness. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face. Another entrance. I haven't used any filters on this one, so you can see exactly what it looks like. Again, flash had to be used. To give you an idea of the size, you would definitely have to squeeze through this on your stomach. It wouldn't be a super tight squeeze, but it wouldn't be possible to crouch. Also, the slightly raised surface you can see just through this hole is an indicator of what the rest of the passageway leading to the dip looks like. Random raised surfaces and narrow gaps, making it impossible to stand up. These are the pictures of the first time they visited the bridge. They didn't really take any pictures after this, but they found some really disturbing things inside the bridge. They went back then a few years later, and this time they took full images. So from here on out, the pictures are going to be of the second time they visited the bridge, but it was pretty much exactly the same, and things were even a bit more disturbing. When revisiting the bridge, we instantly came across what appeared to be a makeshift bed. Going further into the passageway, it opens up slightly. I included this image to demonstrate the amount of dust particles in the air. It was quite a pain to get any clear photos from any sort of distance, other than close-ups. This is the broken padlock that I believed would have originally secured the entry. Not even a third of the way through the bridge at this point. I used a candle. Now this is where things get a bit disgusting. That liquid definitely wasn't milk. And here was the first confirmation that the intense smell we were experiencing was in fact human feces. The brown substance on the paper was undeniable. No more than a few feet beyond, one of the adventurers claimed they could see some object in the distance at the far end. Slightly hesitantly, they agreed to investigate. Mistake. The narrow entrance to the final opening. At this stage, even with 2 powerful torches, you honestly could not see if there was anyone or anything in the end room. This makes for a particularly nervy decision to proceed. Here you can see how tight this section is. Not fun. The entrance to the end room, taken with no flash to get an idea of how this may have looked like in candlelight, which they presumed must have been the light source for this sick individual. Truly the stuff of nightmares. All of the following images were taken inside this room. Here it goes. Literally the first thing I see after squeezing into the end room is a knife. The author reached the end first, and in their own words, I have never felt the same sense of dread before or since. In front of me was a single fold-away chair positioned facing a wall. On the wall was a partially torn page from a newspaper or magazine showing a fully naked lady in an erotic position. The reason I don't just refer to it as porn is because something was different about it. I can't put my finger on it, but something seemed more sinister than sexy. More disturbingly, the eyes of the woman on display had been cut from the page, removed with precision, not just hastily ripped off. The scene that lay before us had rendered us completely speechless, and an overpowering sense of panic could be felt collectively. That was when we found the condom, the horrendous, gut-wrenching, blood-drenched condom. There was so much dust in the area I simply couldn't get a decent flash shot. This is what you would see if the chair was facing the other way round. You can see how the steps open up so you could stand up, and also how it would be easy for somebody to hide waiting for you in this area. The same image, just using torchlight, to give you an idea of how dark this would have been, even with candles. Needless to say, they got the hell out of there as fast as humanly possible. Very glad to be leaving, the final shot I took from inside the structure, just before the exit ladder. The amount of dust in the passageways was actually quite unbearable, and that is nothing compared to the constant stench that must be endured. Also, the heat didn't help. I must express how vulnerable you feel when navigating through the tunnels. Even with 2 of us both carrying appropriate weaponry, the sense of evil was overpowering. The tension is amplified tenfold by the fact that, had we encountered someone or something, The layout of the structure and the multiple tight squeezes means a safe, speedy exit is impossible. It truly is a hellhole. Just like the rest of Wales. And this is the lovely view that greeted us as we popped our heads out. Out of that dark, disturbing, creepy as hell bridge. Who knows who the hell lived in there? A very disturbing and sick individual by all accounts. That's incredibly creepy and not a place I would ever want to go myself. Thank you very much. So some of those images were from the first visit, some from a few years later. The curious thing is that pretty much everything was still there in the 2 posts describing the adventure. Someone was still there all those years later. So there you have it. Next time you're near a bridge, driving over a bridge, just think about what could be inside. There you go. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe if you haven't, and leave your comments on your thoughts on this bridge down below. Alright, drive safe guys.